to Twitch and YouTube. Welcome, everyone. So, just like our last live stream narration, I have TikTok going here. I have Twitch and YouTube going here. And so you will see a little bit of back and forth. Hopefully that doesn't bother you guys too much. Looks like I'm not centered on the camera. That's okay. There we go. Good enough. And hopefully you guys are as excited as I am about this. I just need to get my YouTube chat pulled up because with how I dual stream, part of the issue with dual streaming is you have to pay a premium to dual stream and see all the chats in one. Even the places that do say you're doing it aren't always reliable. And it's so much fun. So let's pop this out. Yay! And that's going. Cool. So now I have my YouTube chat and I have my Twitch chat and I think we're ready to go. Who's excited? Because I am. So we are actually not starting with the first chapter of Silenced Beauty because if you go and look at my socials, you can see the image of Silenced Beauty, which is up on my screen on Twitch and YouTube, and you can hear the first chapter there. We are going to be reading chapter 4. Chapter 4 is where things kind of start rolling a little more, where she starts her adventure. I realized I should move my mic a little bit closer. Get everything good. Whoop. Don't bonk my screen. That's smart too. And as I get going here, one thing I want everyone to understand is I do the voices. That's part of the wonderful part of narration with audiobooks. I do the voices. Are these the final voices this time? Unlike last time, they are. So last time we were not 100% sure on the villain's voice. I have gotten news, you guys can be one of the first to know, that since that read, the voice you heard last time is the villain's final voice. It has been decided. Okay? Has been decided, and we're all very excited about it. I don't know why I switched into an accent. It just kind of happened. Don't know why, but it did. All right. I thought that was a little bit funny. And I think we're good. All right, I am going to be showing what it looks like when I record on Twitch and YouTube. On TikTok, you just get to see me do all the faces I do with the voices and hear the narration. All right, I think we're just about ready. I'm going to take a sip of water. I have mentioned this in the other streams, but one thing that I do to help with mouth clicks are sore throat lollies. When I'm recording for actual voice acting and audiobook lines and publishings, I snack on green apples because it reduces the mouth click sounds, but that's a bit crunchy and loud for everyone on the streams. I'm realizing that's a little bright. There we go. So I just have the lollies that I'll stop and use just a moment. Okay. Oh, and I've gotten this question a few times. I have 2 different brands of these kind of sore throat lollies. Yes, I know. I don't have a sore throat, but it helps. There's the Lollies brand, and there's Beekeepers. I have it on my shop, on my TikTok shop. You can find it there. It's Beekeepers something. I'm not remembering. Forgive me. But Those two are really good brands. They have decent flavors. They're usually used by little kids, but it works pretty well. Shall we start? I think we should start. Oh, wait. No, we will give everyone about a minute because those that are not subscribers on Twitch are currently on an ad break. So we'll give them a minute, I guess. Will be nice. While I do that, I'm going to explain some things that help with narration because of switching voices. One thing that's very helpful is color code highlighting. I assign colors to each character at the start of any book or voice acting narration project if I'm doing more than one voice in that project. And so you'll see, hi Strive Tech, thank you babe. You'll see on here I have different colors for each character. Now I keep a little note on the side of which voice goes to which for when I'm highlighting each chapter. I don't need that now because I've already highlighted it. Also, people have asked, how do you keep track of the voices? I have a file on my computer of little audio clips of each character's voice that I've talked to the authors about. We've gone through a bunch of samples. They've chosen what fits best. Sometimes they'll already have an idea of what they want that person to sound like, that sounds like in their head. Other times they don't, and I just kind of get a vibe for the character, throw out a few different samples, email it to them, and they choose, or they say, hey, I want it to sound a little more like this, or they speak a little slower than that, or a little faster than that, or so on and so forth. Once it's decided, I save it all in that file for that book or voice acting role, and we keep it that way. All right. Given that, I'm going to quickly listen to the main character and a couple of the characters that we will hear. And I will kind of mimic it back to you guys so you hear what I'm hearing. Main character's voice is Aria. Laundry was done this morning. Oh, sorry, wrong book. Main character's voice is not Aria, it's Aliana. She has a nickname. It's Ali or Ali. I've been going back and forth. The author has kind of been somewhat indecisive as saying a spelling and not too specific about how it's pronounced. So I'm thinking it's going to be Ali because it's Aliana or Aliana. Ollie. Ollie sounds like a little boy. We'll say Ali. And that will be the nickname that you hear multiple characters using. All right. Voices file for Silence Beauty. Aliana. Her voice is...
gift arrived today.
She has an accent. She does get silenced by a curse. So, she speaks like this a bit, and that's what you'll hear, even if she's signing, because she's speaking still, so we will still hear her voice. The narration is my own voice, and here is the main male character's
Let's go
voice.
for a ride.
Let's go for a ride. Kind of down here. He's the prince, and he has that somewhat lower voice, not as low as his father, the king, or his friend Bevan. Bevan is his best friend, and someone that he relies on heavily. Rachel. Rachel is one of the servants
for you.
who is more like family because both of her parents have passed. She speaks up here a bit more, and with a little more authority, but still love and kindness. And last person I will go over is, let me find it. There we go. Is another one of the servants. Now, again, she doesn't see them as servants. They are family to her.
That smells delicious.
The other one is Declan. And he speaks down here. And he speaks kind of with his mouth pursed, just ever slightly. He is an older fellow. Hello, Tolly. I'm guessing is how I say it. Welcome to the stream. We are going to be starting to read Silenced Beauty, Chapter 4. It's okay if you haven't heard Chapter 1 or the others. Only Chapter 1 has been released. We're doing a little snippet of the main adventure starting. All right, we've gone over those voices. We are ready to go. All right. I'll still be keeping up with the chats, so feel free to say hi, ask questions, and we're going to go. We're going to start. We'll start the recording so you can see it. So when I speak, you can see the little sound waves. There we go. Let me get back up since I was showing you guys the highlighted lines. That's not actually where I'm starting. I'm like 3 paragraphs in. All right. Competitors and allies. The wagon rocked as it entered the city center square. Aliana stared out at nothingness, her thoughts completely somewhere else. Rachel convinced her to leave the house and do something different to help distract her from her current predicament. Quick aside, her brothers were just turned into swans by a court wizard, and she has just been silenced by a curse, not being allowed to say anything about what happened. Okay. Declan guided the horses down an alley and parked the wagon near the back door of a shop. Aliana slid off the driver's seat to help him unload some of the goods they sold to the shopkeeper. Declan knocked on the door and was greeted by the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper called out his sons to assist them. Did you see the post? They are hosting a bridal competition for Prince Calix. 2 ladies conversed near the alley. Aliana's ears perked up, curious about the post. The ladies moved down the street gossiping, leaving Aliana to wonder more about this bridal competition. She peered over her shoulder to see Declan unloading the cart with the shopkeeper's sons before wandering off to find the post of the central message board. Aliana walked the short distance to a large wooden board between 2 posts. It was the central place where people would post advertisements, help-wanted posters, and news. I need to scroll down. A throng of people crowded the board to see the post about the bridal competition. Aliana edged her way to the front. Hearken, all ye fair and eligible maidens of the realm. A bridal contest shall be held in but 1 week's time for the noble hand of Prince Calix. Let those who would partake present themselves at the palace gate on the appointed day, and return. First blooper! Okay. And return upon the eve of the 7th night hence, before the bell tolls 11. Lodgings shall be provided for all who enter. Aliana read the poster 3 times, committing the words to memory. Perhaps if she entered the bridal competition, she could be closer to her brothers, find a way to rescue them, and break their curses. She shook her head as doubt seeped into her heart. Who was she to rescue her brothers? Aliana didn't have the faintest clue how to go about rescuing them. What if she entered and failed? Her brothers would be lost for the rest of their lives. I want to say that line one more time in a different tone. Her brothers would be lost for the rest of their lives. Aliana turned away from the board and dragged her feet back to Declan and the cart, completely lost in thought. Hopelessness settled in her heart, and each step away from the... with each step away. Hopelessness settled in her heart with each step away from the board she took. When she returned, she saw the knowing look on Declan's face. He knew that something was wrong. If only she could confide in him now, but she quickly learned it was a vain endeavor. Frustration began to feed on her other hopeless feelings. Lifting her chin, she held back her tears until she returned home and helped finish unloading the cart. What happened? Rachel's brow furrowed in concern when she noticed the frown and tears pooling in Aliana's eyes. Declan shrugged. Aliana retired to her bedroom and curled up on her bed to release all her pent-up emotions. Wiping her tears away, she noticed her book on her bedside table. She sat up and opened it to a page at random. Take courage. Aliana stared at the first 2 words as she read. What did it mean? Take courage with what? She felt in her heart as if Solus was telling her to enter the bridal competition. Okay, so one thing to know about this, Solus is their version of a deity. It is the name of their deity. So if you hear her mentioning Solus or Sol, those are holy figures. So there you go. And back to this. I lost my place. She felt in her heart as if Solus was telling her to enter the bridal competition. Could she rescue her brothers by applying? She wasn't sure how long she would last being a mute, but the purpose wasn't to marry the prince, but to stay long enough to rescue her brothers and break the curse. Aliana bit the inside of her cheek as she contemplated the idea. As you wait on Solus, he shall strengthen you, for he knows your path. She continued to read. If the roles were reversed, her brothers would do anything and ever do the right thing. With fragile determination set in her heart, she hightailed it downstairs to present her plan to Rachel Idol competition. Once you enter, how will you free your brothers? Declan asked. I will tease. What if the royal mage recognizes you? Rachel pointed out. Let's say that one more time. What if the royal mage recognizes you? Rachel pointed out. I have to try. They would do the same for me. Aliana's doubtful feelings kept nagging at her, but she shoved them down deep within. Rachel opened her mouth to object. Declan bowed his head in reverence. Aliana's eyes went wide. Declan had never referred to her by a title for as long as she could remember. Rachel and Declan were more like family than servants. She hugged them both and promised herself she would write to them often. She trusted them to watch over her family's home while she stayed at the castle in an attempt to rescue her brothers. That felt helpful in an attempt to rescue her brothers. She sent a quick prayer to Solus for guidance and strength. Aliana was going to scroll down a bit. Aliana clutched her bag over her shoulder as if it were her lifeline. Rachel and Declan stood in line with her, her figurative parental figures. Her figurative gates, she could see a line of servants ready to assist with their assigned lady. A good portion of ladies were highborn and scoffed at those beneath them, rolling their eyes, escorted her to the assigned servant. The servant would take any belongings they brought and guide them into the castle and to their rooms. From what Aliana understood when she registered, I didn't need a pause there. From what Aliana understood when she registered, the servant was to remain by their assigned lady through the whole competition until the lady was dismissed. This is also daunting. Ooh, she's supposed to murmur. I should have underlined this. Okay, this may be interesting for some, others might not care, and that's okay. So, one thing that I do, I'm actually going to change this to the darker red. Now, because she has murmured it, I'm making it a little different. So I highlight completely, like you would in a textbook, the speaking lines. I underline how the description of how they say something is written and described. So she murmured, highlighting that helps me look ahead slightly to get the tone. Sometimes it's before what they say. Hi Chris, good to see ya. Thanks for joining us. If you're looking as well on Twitch or YouTube, you'll be able to see the script I'm reading from. If not on just TikTok, you'll be able to hear the audiobook I'm recording and see the crazy faces I make as I do the voices. All right. Uh, Message me about that, okay? All right. This is also daunting, Rachel murmured under her breath, staring at some of the highborn ladies with their servants, luggage, and a whole entourage. A highborn lady with blonde hair, braided and wrapped around her head, began to proceed forward, but the guard halted her. It was nice to meet you, too. Aliana deduced that a highborn lady was not allowed her own personal servants and would not be allowed more than one piece of luggage, as indicated, stumbled slightly on that, as indicated by the way the guard pointed at the people behind her and the luggage they had. The lady's face turned red as she yelled at the guard, calling him lowly and threatening to have him removed from his job. Another man stepped forward from inside the courtyard, accompanied by more guards, and must have repeated the same thing to her. The man wore a black overcoat with silver edging and black trousers to match. He stood proudly, but Aliana could tell that he was not a royal, but perhaps the head steward of the castle. The lady waved her hand and dismissed her entourage before stepping through the gate and being assigned to an elderly man, who should have retired. It was like, if Fahrenheit, that's cold. I hope you're nice and cozy, wrapped in a blanket maybe. Now I'm curious, how cold is it where everyone is? Some people are having real nice weather. Our weather where I am was, today I believe it was about 55, 54, around there. Not terrible, not too cold. Still want a little jacket. Good enough for kids to be playing outside, so there you go. All right. Let's get back to the book. So much fun. All right. Who should have retired long ago by how hunched over and slow he moved. By the time Aliana reached the front, her hands shook and she wanted to flee from her mission. Nevertheless, she would have the courage to see this through. I'm going to say that more confidently because it's like she's trying to convince herself. Nevertheless, she would have the courage to see this through. Name? The man's monotone voice matched the bored look on his face. Aliana Barra, Declan answered for her. The man gazed up and cocked his brow, suspicious. Can you speak? He asked. Aliana was about to shake her head when Rachel spoke up. Scrolling. She's just shy, she lied. The man didn't believe her, but he also didn't want to make it a bigger issue, so he raised his hand for them to proceed. She is assigned to the servant Cal, he informed the guard. Aliana turned and gave Rachel and Declan a quick hug before following a guard to the servant assigned to her. She stood at... she, he, male, pronouns. Another blooper for the books. Okay. He stood a foot taller than she, maybe a little too straight, and his auburn hair was combed perfectly. He wore a plain brown overcoat and tan trousers. No straight posture. I don't know. Maybe she's got a really good gaydar. I don't know. But, yeah, straight posture. I mean, if you think about servants in older times, usually they didn't stand super confidently and straight unless they were a soldier as well. So that's a good distinction and also really nice for visuals, like mental visuals. I like that. Maybe a little too straight, and his auburn hair was combed perfectly. He wore a plain brown overcoat and tan trousers. At least he was clean, young, and, if she admitted it, handsome. May I take your bag, my lady? Cal bowed at the waist. Aliana slipped her bag off her shoulder and handed it to her servant. Cal took the bag and guided her toward her new home for the next several weeks. Cal took the bag and guided her toward her new home for the next several weeks. Good to have a couple options on some of those lines. Thanks for the sweet compliments, Chris. All right. Calix could not believe his luck. He noticed her from a distance with her stunning white hair braided in two. She wore a simple blue gown. His neck had ached from forcing it to stay straight instead of turning to stare at her through the gate. They both waited in line. She was waiting to enter and he was waiting to be assigned. By some miracle, he was assigned to her. "What is your name?" Calix asked. Her eyes grew wide, and she looked around them frantically. Was it something he said? She bowed her head and continued following him, completely ignoring his question. She didn't look like the type of person to be rude. However, Calix felt a little offended at her complete disregard for his question. Calix opened the door to her room. It wasn't as grand as some of the others, but it still supported a 4-poster bed, a full wardrobe, and a desk. The tall windows opened up to the castle gardens below. The lady looked around. When she came upon the window, her demeanor changed. She clung to the glass and tears slipped from her rug. He left her and put her bag into the wardrobe. You guys, I don't know why my nose is so itchy. Sorry. Is there like a hair tickling my nose? Whatever. Okay. All right. "I will be right in this room next door if you should need anything," Calix said, pointing to the door that connected his small room with hers. She didn't acknowledge him, but continued to cry silently at the window. Shaking his head, he retreated to his small room, waiting to be of service. Calix must have dozed off when the bell chimed the hour, the dinner hour. Panicked, Calix jolted from his bed and flung open the door, only to find the lady sitting on a settee in a slim silver satin gown. She had her hair braided and wrapped around her head. Even though she was simply dressed, she was a vision to behold. Someone must have entered and helped her prepare for the feast that was waiting for them downstairs. Scrolling. "I apologize, my lady," Calix murmured after clearing his throat and bowing at the waist. Is Ashley in the chat right now? Lovely author, I have a question. Strife Tech! I'm just seeing this. Why didn't it show up on the normal chat? Hi, Ashley. I have a question for you. You guys, on TikTok, we have Ashley after clearing his throat. Do you want me to clear my throat and then speak that line as well as have that descriptor, or just speak in his normal voice and then read that descriptor? I mean, I could always record both and see which one you prefer, but since you're right here, might as well ask. In the meantime, Strife Tech, thank you for the sparkly pebble. I appreciate it. I will put it in the pond with all the other shiny sparkly pebbles you've given me. Ooh, that's a good moment to point out. I don't actually need to have these on right now anyway. I have the headphones. For those on Twitch, knowing I am an otter girl, I got otter earrings. I'll show TikTok too. Look! I have visited our local little game shop in my town, and they feature local artists, authors, creators, and they have some of their products there. And they had otter earrings, and I have yet to get otter earrings. So, yay! Okay. The otter girl has otter earrings, and it made me happy. Okay, I'm going to put these over here. All right, so said sure before I asked the question. Let me know. I can always add that later. So I did it without clearing his throat. I'm going to record it one more time with clearing his throat, and I'll let you decide later, Ashley. I'm really happy that you're able to join for the live a little bit and see a little bit of this. Of course, you already have this chapter, but there we go. Okay. I apologize, my lady, Calix murmured after clearing his throat and bowing at the waist. She turned her head and didn't utter a word as she gazed soulfully into his eyes. Calix couldn't help but wonder what sad story shone through her eyes and demeanor. The lady stood and followed him out. Calix entered the overly crowded dining hall. He paused at the doorway and searched for an empty seat. As much as he wanted to bolt at the overwhelming thought that one of the ladies present could be his future wife, he proceeded to walk to an empty spot not too far from the door. He pulled out the chair and, once she was seated, stepped back. He observed and tried to listen to conversations closest to him. "Hi, Maya!" "Mia?" "Maya. I'm guessing Maya because it's a Y. Thanks for joining us." All right. And if I said it wrong, I apologize. All right. Scroll a little bit while I'm paused and take a quick hydration break. There we go. He estimated that at least 40 women would be at the tables tonight, and more would arrive by the hour until the bell struck 11. He recognized some of the ladies of the court who sat closer to the royal table. One in particular caught his eye, Lady Adrea. Her ebony hair hung loose down her back. She sat next to his mother and laughed at something that was said. A shiver ran down his back. He avoided her as much as possible. I realize I have highlighted this wrong. This should be this light yellow because it wasn't actually Calix speaking. Even though I've already fixed that before, I'm gonna fix that now. There we go. All right, now it's fixed. We're good. We're good. Because it's not Calix saying it. It just has Calix's name right after it. So while I was quick highlighting, my bad. That's okay. All right. "And pray tell, what is your name?" Calix's attention snapped to the table he was supposed to bowed her head and didn't answer. Another woman with reddish auburn hair chuckled. Another woman with reddish auburn hair chuckled. They were mocking her silence. Why did the lady sit there without saying a word? Why did the lady sit there without saying a word? "Portia, we are of a higher rank. She cannot simple dress." Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. "Perhaps she doesn't respond to mockery." A mousy brown-haired lady. "Most call me Grace." When Grace didn't get a response, her face fell, and she turned to the woman on her left and struck up a friendly conversation. Stelia and Portia snickered. "As if the prince would choose someone with white hair and who could not speak. They should only allow highborns into the competition." Stelia waved her hand as if she were waving away a stench. Calix couldn't stand the bullying anymore. He took mental notes to refer to Bevan and grabbed his lady's hand, her quarters, and locked the door. "Who are you and why don't you speak?" Calix demanded, crossing his arms. The lady bit her lip and looked around for something. Her eyes landed on the desk. She strode over and pulled out paper and ink. Taking the quill, she scribbled something on the paper. She turned around and handed the paper to him. "Aliana Bara." It dawned on him. Aliana was a mute. A little bit of guilt gnawed at his conscience for jumping to conclusions a little bit himself. "Oh, hey, thank you for following. I really appreciate it. You have a lot of numbers after your username. Thanks for joining user 9782748870365. Thank you for following. I really appreciate it. Not used to having to read all those numbers, but I wanted to call you out specifically and thank you. Okay. "You cannot speak, can you? You cannot speak, can you?" It was more of a statement than a question. Aliana shook her head. She took the paper and scribbled. "What is your name?" She wrote. An idea struck him. Something that his tutor taught him. He hadn't used it in years, but he hoped he could still remember the motions of his heart. Next, he created the Next, he created the letters C-A-L with his hand. He watched as Aliana's eyes lit up. She pointed toward his hands. "It is sign language," Calix said, moving his hands with the words. Aliana pointed to herself and pointed towards his hands again. Stripe Tech, did a sea witch steal her voice? No, in a previous chapter, the court mage stole her voice in a way. Sealed her voice away, I guess, would be a better way to describe it. So he chased her brother, came to the house, saw she was there, did not want anyone to know that he had been there, and among other things, he silenced her with a curse. She cannot speak. If she tries to write out or in the future sign what happened, she physically cannot. So she writes her communication for the most part. And as the story goes, she learns more sign language. So Strive Tech and I know a little bit of sign language. We both know our alphabet. I know some random words from growing up with a neighbor that was deaf. And he knows a little bit as well. So I think this is a really great representation for those that develop hearing loss later in life or earlier in life and have to learn to adapt. Also just for deaf persons in general and how their friends learn for them. There's something on my tooth. There we go. Let's keep going. Calix said, moving his hands with the words. Aliana pointed to herself and pointed towards his hands again. "You want to learn?" Aliana nodded at his question. Excitement coursed through his veins. "I'll be right back," Calix said, holding up his hands in front of him, palm out as if to freeze her in her spot. Aliana cocked her head, but remained where she was. Calix dashed out. A few minutes later, he returned, balancing a large tray of food in his arms. He kicked the door, indicating he had returned and needed it opened. Aliana opened the door and stepped aside. Aliana opened the door and stepped aside to let him through. He set the tray on the desk and presented her with a plate. Oh, fantasy sign language, not true ASL, although I do know some. Straight from the author, you guys. Fantasy sign language, that's cool. I mean, I think that actually makes it even more universal since, for those that don't know, because not everyone does, each language has their own sign language. Didn't feel fitting to put ASL? Okay. Yeah, so I know a little bit of American Sign Language, and there are a bunch of different types of sign language. So fantasy sign language makes it a little more universal, I think, because people aren't needing to imagine ASL specifically because it is written by an American author. I actually really like that. That's a nice touch. Okay. Where was I? There we go. Aliana opened the door and stepped aside to let him through. He set the tray on the desk and presented her with a plate. Aliana took it. She looked around to find there were no chairs, but made herself comfortable before the fire. "Were you born mute?" Calix asked, making himself comfortable on the rug as well. Aliana shook her head. "What happened?" Aliana took the paper, ink, and quill from the desk and placed them on the floor in front of her. Cursed. That was all she could write. He noticed how hard she tried to write more, but her hand froze, refusing to write whatever she wanted to write. Giving up, she wrote, "You are not a typical servant." Calix nervously chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Apparently, he was not a very good servant if she noticed it was not his normal station. I temporarily lost my station. He fibbed. He felt bad for not being completely honest, but he couldn't afford to be discovered. "Teach me how to sign?" Aliana wrote. Scrolling. "Yes, and I will be a translator as well. Calix agreed. The night wore on as Calix sat on the floor, teaching Aliana all the signs he could remember. She was a quick learner. That is the end of chapter 4. So, what do you think? Let me know. I am sure that our awesome author Ashley Mendoza on TikTok would love to know everyone's thoughts as well. So let me know in the comments. It seems like a good amount of people have just left now that we are at the end of the chapter. That's okay. I understand that. It is Saturday night. Some people get most of their Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok watching done on Saturday nights, while other people use that as their night away from social media. Totally fine with either one. This is recorded on Twitch for those that want to watch it again. Is this the first book of the series or... Oh, good question. Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is a standalone. She has quite a few other books, and they are mostly, from what I've seen, fairy tale retellings. Yes, it is a standalone, yes? Or were you saying, yes, it's the first book of a series? I believe it's a standalone. It gets rather intense. I don't know how much I actually want to say. Oh, it is part of a multi-author series, but it is a standalone. Very nice. I have seen similar styled covers by other authors that are also fairy tale retellings, just twists on the fairy tale. I'm guessing it's part of that same series. That's super fun. All right, so I'm continuing to record the other chapters, and I'm very excited to see how this goes. Oh, since I closed that, it took that out. If anyone has any other questions about narration, voice acting, the process, how I work it all out and keep the voices straight, so on and so forth, please feel free to ask. I would love to answer those for you. It is an absolute delight to be able to do this. I'm honored to be able to dive into this world and give voice to these characters. It is so much fun. I think everyone's really going to like this because it is one that I don't feel is too there are some intense challenges that are part of the competition and some undercover work. So you guys will have to see how it goes, and I will keep everyone updated on when it is submitted to ACX. They take, on average, 14 days to go over and approve all the files for audiobooks, and then it's automatically published. There have been some shorter books that have taken 10 to 12 days. I've also had longer books that took 3 weeks. So I don't actually have an exact completion date for everyone, but that's okay to put it all out there for everyone. All right, as promised at the start of this, I'm going to be switching exclusively over to Twitch, doing a little bit of Palia and some last time, because I have other work I do need to get done before the Sabbath, and we'll have a whole bunch of fun over there. For those on TikTok, thank you so much for joining us for a little snippet of this story. And please follow, share, tell your friends. I'd love to have more people involved and to share more of Ashley's talented world. All right, I will see you guys later. All right, TikTok is ended. All right, so just like last time, I will be switching over to just the gaming screen and switching to Palia. We will start that going, and everyone will be able to ask more questions. You can do some redeems. If you look at the pebble points, you get redeems. I have one where you can make the voice lower, where you can change the pitch with whatever. I'm going to put this as intermission while I set up the game, and then we'll be back. So, don't go away, okay? See you in a minute. I'm back just for a moment. So, I cannot end the YouTube stream while live. It would end both. So, I will be back starting a new stream for Palia in just a couple minutes. See you in a couple.